I'm joined by head coach Enza Steele from the University of Lynchburg field hockey team. They were picked number 1 in the 2021 fall ODAC preseason poll. You know, coach, obviously last year, very different from anything that anyone has ever experienced. And this being your 43rd season, you would know more than anybody else probably in the ODAC right now, just how different that was. Talk a little bit about going through playing in the first spring season ever in ODAC history.
Well, it was definitely extremely unique. It took a lot. Most of our athletes tend to take their overload or thesis in the spring. So I had, 10 seniors that all had some sort of thesis project going on, and they just needed extra time, and I found that with COVID, they were a little fragile, that they lost their fall season. They are in hybrid. Some of them only had a class that met once or twice a week. They were kind of dying for socialization. So I found that during practices, we spent more time, maybe doing a fun activity, picking their teams, picking drills. I gave them a little more independence in the spring that I think kept them engaged. And, that's not typical in a season because you're preparing for 19, 20, 22 games in postseason. So I think we did the best we could. And I think the girls did rally, you know. The semifinal game was a great example of, they just got grit, and I said to them, "Is this all you got?" And they looked at me and they said, "No." I said, "Well, then let's go out there." And we scored 3 goals in the fourth quarter and 1 in overtime, and couldn't ask for anything more.
No, you couldn't. And if you look at that squad, I mean, you say you did the best you could, and really you did. 10-0, 7-0 in the league, coming through with ODAC title. I think it's your 21st ODAC title, 3rd straight for the program. Just talk a little bit about the competitive side of it now, of going through that there and kind of the experience of what last year does and being that much closer to this year coming in. Is there any benefit maybe to that about playing later in the year and then being able to apply it almost right away to the new fall season?
Yeah, I mean, usually that's to your advantage, but most of my starters graduated. I
Right.
brought back a couple key players. The 2 key things for us is we had to play 1 game without Alexis Brown, midfielder All-American, and we won that game. We had to play the championship game without Jackie. She got hurt in the first quarter, and she's also an All-American attack player. So I think to see the team rally and still play well without, super key players was a great thing. And, I had a non-starter come into the ODAC championship game, and I said, "You're going in and you're going to score." And she said, "Yep." Went in and scored 2 quick goals. And I think that's the kind we're hoping that that's the kind of team that we'll have this year. Teams that are going to work hard, and when they're asked to do something, they know what to do and how to do it.
Well, that's the perfect segue coming in here. Let's talk about the state of your squad coming into this fall season. We know that you've got several key players back. Yes, you alluded to that you lost several key players, but you still have a lot of good players back, including Jackie, including Emily Dudley coming back in, and then several all-conference players. And I think the one question mark is you graduated an academic All-American in goal. So who's going to be your new goalkeeper coming in this year? But talk about the state of the squad coming into this year's preseason.
I mean, it's really funny is because they asked me yesterday, where do you see me? What do you see me doing? And I said, right now, with just 3 practices, I could tell every single one of you, you're going to be a starter. And that's the way we want you all to play. So I don't know from game to game who is starting. And that's the thing that I'm seeing in this group. They're all fighting for that position, and that's going to make us stronger. So, our goal cage, we do have a sophomore and a freshman. We had Alex Boatwright, who probably would have been our starting senior goalkeeper, broke her foot last week and had surgery. So that kind of, sets us up for a very young defensive team. So I think offensively, we're going to be solid. People, are probably going to be like, how do we stop their attack? Midfield solid. Defense could be unbelievable, or they could have, some issues. So we
Absolutely.
don't know.
That happens with young players, and we know how that is, about how you have to get acclimated to the college game. But, talk a little bit about that, about where you think your team stacks up regionally and maybe even nationally right now, because I know last year you felt like you had a really strong squad that could have challenged anything. I think this year, with the depth that you bring back, and like you said, that little bit of question mark on defense, you could be right back there, though.
Yeah, I've thought a little bit about it, and I'm like, we're going to be a team that will get stronger every game that we play.
I
And we
agree.
play a tough game out of region. So even if we lost 2 out of our first 5 games before we started conference, I still feel like we've learned from those games, and we're going to play tough if we do wind up getting an NCAA bid. Maybe we're going to be a Cinderella team. I don't know. I mean, when you have a young group, that happens because they don't have anything to lose.
Sure, absolutely. But let's take a look at the league right now. And I think some of the things that have helped you raise your game, even though, I mean, how do you raise your game with 21 ODAC titles? I mean, it is what it is, but still help raise your game because the league has gotten better over the years. You had
Oh,
that period of
yeah.
2015, 2016, 2017, where Bridgewater and Washington and Lee and Shenandoah, I can't remember if that's the right order, but those 3 squads came away with titles. And then Lynchburg has won the last 3. But still, we've seen programs in the league improve over the last several years. What do you see for the conference this year?
Well, what I'm seeing is we don't have a top and a bottom. We
Mm-hmm.
have a strong top, and then we have a solid mid-core, and that makes everybody better. And how our conference plays against other teams out of conference is really important. And I think we're doing that. Every coach in the ODAC is really taking their team out of conference, playing some tough games out of conference. And then that makes them stronger in conference. It makes every team stronger. I never know whether it be Washington, Lee, Shenandoah, it could be a Rona, Bridgewater, Randolph-Macon. Any of those teams could step out on the field and beat anyone. We could have a conference that we don't have any undefeated team going into the tournament. I think there's going to be multiple ties, and that's going to be a challenge for the conference. You could have a 3-way tie for first place, a 3-way tie for second place.
Well, that's why people like me and Brad Bankston, we get to make those tiebreaker procedures that kind of help that process out. But Coach, I agree with a lot of the statements you said here, and we look forward to watching you and the rest of the league play. So thank you for joining me today.
Okay, thank you. Take care, JJ.